Everyone, welcome back to my channel, Speak Crime to Me. My name is Elena. On today's episode, I'm going to do a quick recap of the Murdaugh trial. Day 8. This was a rather, I would say, non-eventful day in court, but let's get after it. So first I'm going to go through the financial portion of the trial and then, or I guess of like the semi-trial, and then I will go through the actual murder trial and witnesses. Anything related to Murdaugh and his financial schemes will come into this trial. So the first witness for the financial portion was Palmetto State Bank CEO. The old CEO was fired and he has been charged with, I think, 6 accounts of some federal fraud. So this is the new CEO, Jan Malinowski. He testifies that Murdaugh owed $4.2 million to the bank. Murdaugh had massive debts. And this old CEO of the Palmetto State Bank, I'll just say his last name, I think it's Lafayette, loaned him money to cover up how much Murdaugh was actually in debt. On August 9th, 2021, Murdaugh's account was overdrafted by more than $550,000. Lafayette then transferred more than $400,000 to cover it up. Lafayette also gave Murdaugh a loan of $750,000 to remodel the Edisto house, but instead Murdaugh used that money, a portion of his overdraft, plus to pay back some money towards Chris Wilson. We know that Murdaugh owed Chris Wilson like $768,000 or something like that from that case they worked on together. They were best friends and Murdaugh stole from him. It was basically what Malinowski said when the prosecution interviewed him, and then the defense just basically got on the stand and basically just stated that this bank made more than $400 million off of Murdaugh in interest alone. Then we go to another financial witness. His name is Tony Satterfield. He is the son of the late Murdaugh housekeeper, the one that fell in the Murdaugh home. And this is one of the witnesses that they are saying, if this financial portion gets admitted into the trial, that this could be a kind of a damaging witness in terms of showing the jury who Murdaugh actually was as a person. Testifies when his mother passed, he thought that Murdaugh was his lawyer. Murdaugh told him that they should get about $100,000 of insurance policy money. Then Murdaugh later told Tony, or pledged to Tony, that him and his brother would both get $100,000 of settlement money. Then in June 2021, remember the murders occurred June 7th, Tony and his brother heard that a settlement had been reached. When they asked Murdaugh, he said that he was still working on it. There was a $505,000 settlement, and Murdaugh took $3.8 million as well from the settlement. Tony Satterfield establishes that Murdaugh was capable of being basically vindictive and vile. And that's how that testimony basically ends. Next on the stand for this financial portion is Carson Burney. He's a forensic accountant. He was hired to trace all the money that Murdaugh stole. And he testified that there were hundreds of checks that Murdaugh had written to Cousin Eddie, aka Curtis Smith. And that was how the financial portion of the trial went on Friday. On Monday, we're going to hear from Mallory Beach's family attorney. She is the person who was killed in that boat accident in 2019, and we're supposed to hear a ruling from the judge, hopefully after that testimony, if some of these witnesses will be able to testify in front of the jury. Let's move on to the murder trial portion. The first witness up was Thomas Darrell. He's a fingerprint examiner with SLED. He testifies that they rarely find fingerprints on fired shell casings. He swabbed that shotgun that Murdaugh went back to his house to get after he found Paul and Maggie dead. And he said he found no fingerprints on that gun. He also analyzed the .300 Blackout plus 3 other shotguns in the Murdaugh home. And he says there was not enough detail on the guns to try to trace fingerprints. I find that interesting that if Murdaugh went to go get that gun that night, wouldn't you think his fingerprints would be on that gun? That just kind of raised a little bit of alarm bells for me. But then he got off the stand, and we have another SLED agent, a former SLED agent, Lawrence Wiggins. And this is the part of the trial where the prosecution is telling us that they did look at other suspects besides Murdaugh. So Lawrence Wiggins testifies that he swabbed Roger Davis, who is believed to be the caretaker of the dogs, as well as Anthony Cook, which was a survivor of the 2019 boat crash. Then we hear from SLED agent Chandler Horney. He swabs 2 more survivors of the 2019 boat crash, Morgan Daughtry and Millie Altman. And then we hear from a third SLED agent. I'm just going to call this SLED agent Omar Joe because his last name is very weird and I don't want to butcher it. And he swabs Randy Murdaugh, which is Alec Murdaugh's brother, as well as some other individuals. Then we go into SLED agent Paul Greer, and he is testifying about firearms and bullets and things like that. He says that shell casings found near Maggie's body, he claims that shell casings found by Maggie's body were also matched other shell casings in the Murdaugh home, and says that Maggie was killed by a Murdaugh family gun. He also testifies that the 2 shotgun blasts that killed Paul were fired by the same gun. He also claims that .300 Blackout shell casings had identical marks as older shell casings found on the Moselle property, the shooting range, and the main house. He analyzes Buster's .300 Blackout, but says that the gun couldn't fire rapidly. He had to manually pull the trigger or something like that. But when the defense asks him if he can confirm 100% if the shell casings found near Maggie's body were fired from the same gun as the older shell casings that he found. And he says that he declines to say 100%, but that is his conclusion. And that is basically how we wrapped up Friday of the Murdaugh trial. Monday should be a very interesting day, so I will be back with a recap. So stay tuned. And thank you all again for joining me here on Speak Crime to Me. Until next time.